Hey guys, I think we're online. Apologies for the delay. We're still waiting on Anna to come through come to our studio so we can actually go online with her. So while we're waiting, I'll tell you guys about some of the events that CMB does. So we do at CMB. There's a sport group that starts. The next one's on the 4th of June. You can get all the details at the website. For that, if you go to CMB's website and events, you'll see all the details there. And our next, sorry, I'm just getting Anna through the studio. Okay. I had to come online, otherwise we'd have lost our Facebook Live. We had to come online within 10 minutes of 7. So 10 past 7, Facebook wouldn't have allowed us to come online. And our next meetup is going to be on the 16th, which is an open mic for Refugee Day. So you can come join, anyone can come and join our live stream on 16th of June from 7 to 8 and share their stories regarding asylum, apostasy, or anything they want to. Okay, before we start, can we make sure that we're live on both Facebook and YouTube? I think we are. We're getting comments on Facebook. Thank you. Okay, I have Anna in the studio now. Fine. Yes. Hello, Anna. I think we can't hear you. Is your mic working? We can't hear you. Did you allow access? Your mic needs to be given permission to record you. To people who are asking how can they join today, unfortunately, you won't be allowed to join in today. You can join in on our next meetup, which is on the 16th of June. You can come join us and tell us your story and whatever you want to talk about. But today is Anna is going to explain all the asylum process and who can and how the asylum process goes, and then we'll take questions. If you have any questions for Anna, you can start leaving in the comments now, and then I can scroll through and actually get those questions. Sorry, I'm looking off. We still can't hear you. No. Would you like to join this video again if you go and then join again? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, we're anticipating Anna. She's a brilliant solicitor. While we get Anna back, and I'll introduce her. So Anna is a solicitor and a partner at a law firm in London. She practices in immigration and asylum work and has interest in human rights and European law. Anna is internationally recognized. She's expert in gender and sexuality-based asylum claims, as well as having extensive expertise in representing individuals from vulnerable backgrounds, for example, people who've been the victims of trafficking or transgenders from specific countries, and apostasy, of course. And she's referred to by almost all London's authorities. She's used as a reference person on many of the cases, and her success rate on apostasy cases is quite high. And I think we have her. Let's see. I think it's the same problem again. We still can't hear you. I think if you use your earphones or something, that'd be a lot better. Yeah. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hello.
Oh, hi. How about now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. That's great. Thank you. Oh, it's gone again. We can't hear you. The sound's gone again. We can't hear you. No. Uh, no, I think we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, finally. Hi, welcome, Anna. Apologies, I did your introduction in your absence. Oh, it's gone again. We can't hear you again. While we get Anna back online, you can start posting your questions, whichever questions you have on the side. Yes, no voice. No, it's still not working. No. No, there's a Discord. No, nothing seems to be working. Yeah. Okay. While we get Anna back online, if you have any questions, she tried removing her earphones and it wasn't still working. While we try and get Anna back online, if you have any questions regarding any ex-Muslim issues or anything, if you want to know anything about ex-Muslim issues, just leave a question, and I try and answer as much as I can. Before we can't go offline now, then we'll leave our link. We'll lose our link. So we know that there are 13 countries in the world that punish apostasy and atheism by death. So there are individuals from those countries who leave those countries and come to the West in hopes of a better life, and then they have to claim asylum because there's a real threat to their life in those countries. And asylum is a way of them, as a lifeline for them to actually live in peace, actually live according to themselves, live with the philosophies they believe in, without having a fear of prosecution over their heads at all times, without being scared of their lives all the time. And that's where people like Anna help those people and actually go to Home Office with them and let Home Office know about their ordeal in details. And still we see asylum isn't something that Home Office actually very happy to grant to every individual, which we understand. But today we'll talk about the things apostates, the problems apostates have to face while going through that claim. I think we have one back. No, yeah. What are your thoughts on Majid Nawaz face relate to Islam and Islamism? Today's show is about asylum and apostasy and how people around the world are actually killed or prosecuted because of their apostasy, and how the West has a legal as well as an ethical responsibility to provide them protection. I think we have Anna back on. Hi, and I think we can hear you fine now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Finally.
Finally.
Sorry about that. I have to bring my iPad down. Nothing else worked. I'm really
Okay.
sorry.
All right. It's
Okay,
great
okay.
to have you now.
Are you running out the material there? I can see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, experts have the better things to say about that. And
Sure thing. Okay, so sorry everybody. It's just all sorts of technology has let me down today, but here we are now. So thank you for coming to this first webinar from CMB.
it's second overall, and first about asylum. And
It's the first asylum webinar.
yes.
Okay. So my name is Ana Gonzalez, as you know, and I am a solicitor and partner of Wilson Solicitors. I'm also an atheist, a free thinker, and an ex-Catholic. So I'm an atheist like you. I do a lot of asylum work. I've been doing this work for about 20 years now, and I've been working with apostates and mainly ex-Muslims, ex-Catholics, people who have sought asylum in the UK on the basis of the atheism for the last 10 years. And I have got a very close association with CEMB, something that I'm very, very proud of. And I have represented many people associated with this organization. So I'm just going to explain to you how it works. So first, a little bit about the law. So who is a refugee? A refugee is a person who fears persecution, fears some sort of harm, some sort of problem in their country of origin. In order to apply for asylum, you have to be out of your country. You have to be, you need to fear persecution, some sort of harm, problems. It doesn't have to be the death penalty. Apostasy is punished by death in 13 countries overall in the whole world. But you don't have to come from one of those countries. You can come from countries that are not on that infamous list of 13 countries. And I have had many clients from countries like that, places like North Africa, for example, that are not on that list, but it's still very dangerous and very problematic. It's not an issue that, oh, I will be killed or will be put in prison, like it will be the case perhaps like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan. But it would be, persecution could be something as mundane as not being able to find work because of your apostasy, not being able to find housing, being ostracized, and having people making your life extremely difficult. That in itself is capable of amounting to persecution. So generally speaking, who is a refugee? Somebody who fears persecution for reasons of race, nationality, political opinion, religion, membership of a social group. That's what the Refugee Convention says. And you might be wondering, where are the apostates there? They're not really particularly obvious there. So apostasy is one of these categories that is not immediately obvious when it comes to refugee status. It's a bit like LGBTI cases. That I do represent lots of LGBTI cases. Some of them are LGBTI and atheist as well. So you might get that as well. So there could be a combination of issues, and people may have more than one reason to claim asylum. That's not uncommon at all. Yeah. And so where do the atheists fit in here? Well, I argue atheism on two grounds. On religion, more specifically, lack of religion, and on political opinion. Because in certain countries, like Iran, for example, previous example is a theocracy. Pakistan, for example, is supposed to be a secular state, but it's not very secular. It's very much ruled by religion. But in countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, which are clear theocracies and where religion has got an institutionally prevalent place when it comes to running of the country, you cannot separate politics from religion. It's impossible. In countries that are very conservative, like Pakistan, for example, the Philippines is a highly Catholic country, where it is not acceptable not to follow religion at all. It's simply not acceptable. 98 million people living there, most of them are Catholic. There's no divorce, and homosexuality is not particularly tolerated either. And in countries like that, it's just not possible to exist without the support of the community. So even if they don't persecute you, you cannot survive. So that in itself is persecutory. So you need to show that you have got a well-founded fear. What does that mean? That means that you have to have a fear that can be evidence and is very clear. For example, in Pakistan, you get blasphemy laws, very clear blasphemy laws, where people who disrespect Islam are put in prison and they're condemned to death. There's a very famous case of Asia Bibi, or Asia Bibi, or we want to pronounce it, yeah. A very, very famous case that captured the indignation of the world, and there's been a lot of international attention on that particular case. So this woman was pretty much on death row for a good couple of years until the Supreme Court absolved her, and she's been on the run ever since. So it is an absolutely horrendous situation. So pretty much everybody faces the same fear in countries like that. Now, you need to also show that you cannot relocate in your country of origin. Now, if you are an atheist, an apostate from for example, from the south of the States, from the Bible Belt, where it is impossible not to be an evangelist, and you could easily be lynched, and people have been lynched. It's just absolutely horrendous. You can leave from that area and you can go and live in that part of the United States. So those people can never be refugees because they've got another option. They can go to New York, they can go to San Francisco. It's a big country. They can go. Nobody cares. If you are in Saudi Arabia and Bangladesh, you can't because the danger is absolutely everywhere. If you are in a country like Iran, where the government will go after you, it's even worse. So you need to show, you will need to demonstrate that you cannot hide anywhere else. That is a big element of asylum claims. And in the vast majority of apostate cases, that's really not a problem to show. That really is actually absolutely fine. So how do you apply for asylum? How do you apply for asylum? Well, you need to approach the authorities in the UK. You need to approach the infamous Home Office. First thing you need to do, you need to make a phone call. You can do this yourself. If you've got a lawyer, you can get the lawyer to do it. It doesn't really matter. It's actually not important. A friend can call for you as well. If you're not particularly confident speaking English, that's fine. And you will give some information about yourself. They ask you not very much: name, nationality, date of birth, your address, and then they will give you another call to ask you some more information. Why you're claiming asylum? Because I'm an atheist. They won't ask you anything else. And that information will be asked of you when you go to see them. And you will go, the first port of call is what we call a screening interview. At the moment, even though COVID-19 has closed pretty much everything, I am told it's still possible to claim asylum. And I have heard anecdotally, we haven't done it ourselves, but I've heard from other firms that it is possible to book appointments and to go into the building observing social distancing. It's not possible to apply for any other things, but that apparently it is still possible to do. So if you're thinking that, oh, I want to apply for asylum, but I don't think I can now, yes, you can. An important thing is that you call and you register the call just to protect yourself in case you get stopped by the police or something happens. So you go into the Home Office, they give you an appointment, off you go. You will need, what do you need to take to the Home Office? Where you take yourself. You take any medication that you might take. I will explain why in a minute. You take your passport if you have it. Many of my clients had unsuccessful prior immigration applications. The passport were kept or they lost it. But if you have your passport or ID card, you need to take it with you. And if you are successful, you're never going to see it again. Then when you're there, it's a big waiting game. Nothing much happens at the screening unit. There's actually there's some questions asked of you, nationality, why you're applying, where you're applying now. Similarly weird questions if you're not really briefed by a solicitor before you go. Similarly strange questions like, why shouldn't we detain you today? It's like, oh my God, why would you? That's the answer. Why would you detain me? I come to you voluntarily. Why would you detain me? Or things like, is anybody forcing you to do anything you don't want to? It's like, when people get that question, they don't know what to answer. It's like, what do you mean? They're trying to identify whether you are a potential victim of human trafficking. That's the sort of origin of that question. But not very much gets asked of you. They ask about your apostasy. They might ask you when you became an atheist, but maybe not. The main purpose of that appointment is to register your claim. Also, they will take your fingerprints. Very important that. They will take your fingerprints and they will run them through a European database called Eurodac. And the purpose of that is that if you have gone through any European country at some point in your journey to the UK, or even if you've been there recently, like on a holiday or a visit or something, the Home Office could potentially send you to that country to pursue your asylum application there. Now, that's what is called the third country referral or doubling. So this is part of the Dublin Convention. What's going to happen after Brexit with Dublin? Nobody knows. So it may well be the end of Dublin, very possibly. But we don't know that yet. But it's something that, if you have been through one of these particular countries, say that you came from Saudi Arabia via Frankfurt, for example, yeah, and then you come to the UK and apply for asylum, that could be an issue. Why didn't you stop in Frankfurt? Why didn't you apply for asylum there? So that is that. On that point, I possibly for most people listening to this is not relevant, but I think I still should mention it. The Home Office expects you to claim asylum at the first available opportunity. What does that mean? Ideally, they want you to claim asylum at the airport. Now, I had out of 75-ish apostate cases that I've done, only one applied at the airport, and that was an activist who knew exactly what he was doing, an activist that was involved in atheism in his country of origin and other countries, and he couldn't stay there any longer. For that reason, he had friends in the UK who told him, come to the UK, apply for asylum, and that's what he did. But that's rare. That's rare. The most common scenario that I encounter with my atheist cases in the UK is pretty much the same thing, really. Nice person from country X, doesn't really matter, comes to the UK to study, usually to study. Come from a really oppressive society. They don't know any better. That's what they grew up in. Some of them have some doubts. Some of them are very devout. They're all extremely intelligent and extremely inquisitive. And they come to the UK, they go to university here, they meet people from all over the world, they live in an open society, which is new to them. They have access to information, to the internet, to books and things that they were never really available to them before. And they unwittingly embark on this journey to atheism until eventually they come out, so to speak, and they realize that they no longer believe in God. That happens to us all. That happened to me, not in the same way. It happened to me in a very personal way. I became an atheist in my teens. I didn't believe in God anymore. But, I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I don't believe in God anymore. It's just, it was a process, and it's a process with everybody. So this is the sort of garden variety type of apostate that I get in my caseload. That's really what normally happens. And when they realize that they cannot go back, because once you don't believe, the genie is out of the bottle. It won't go back in. This is the problem. And you can't go back to one of these countries and just put yourself in the atheist closet in order to conform, because your atheism, it has become a very important part of yourself, something that you cannot change, and something that is very important, very dear to you. This is how you live your life. So you cannot be expected to pretend to believe in order not to be persecuted, not to have any problems, to be able to be employed, to go and pray 5 times a day if you're a Muslim, to go to church every Sunday or Easter if you're a Catholic. You shouldn't be expected to do that. And this is the problem. So then what happens? People find themselves in a pickle. So I can't go back. Some of them have their visas coming to an end, or their visas have expired, and until they find organizations like this one, or Atheism UK, or the Humanist Society, and they explain to them, oh, actually, you can apply for asylum. Very surprised, really? Particularly lately, when most people think about asylum and refugees, they think of Syria. They think of Salman Rushdie. They think of people like that. Yeah, say, wow, well, how can I be a refugee? I don't understand that. Yeah, you can be a refugee because you fit the criteria, and you have to demonstrate that you are genuinely an atheist, that you come from a place where this is a big problem, and you have to explain why this will be a big problem and what's likely to happen to you. So that is the nitty-gritty of an asylum application. So you will need to demonstrate all of that later on after the screening interview. You will be given, everybody's given, a substantive asylum interview. Before that, I just want to touch briefly on the possibility of detention. I am yet to have an atheist detained at asylum screening unit. It could happen. Hopefully not. Hopefully won't. But normally the people that I encounter that are found in detention centers ended up there in different ways. Maybe they were found working illegally, or they were found, I don't know, in a pub fight that probably had nothing to do with, yeah. And they just basically came to the attention of the police like that, and they realized, oh, you have an immigration status. We put you in a detention center before we can remove you. That sort of thing. So it is always a possibility that you could be put in immigration detention if the Home Office considers that your case is straightforward and can be dealt with fairly quickly. So I'm not going to get too much into this. If that happens, you will be put in a detention center, and you will be given access to legal advice if you don't have a lawyer already. So if anybody has got any questions about that, you can ask me later, but I don't want to get too much into that because it's not very much of a thing in my experience. Asylum interview, super important part of your case, possibly the most important part of your case up until that point, particularly if you don't have to go to court, if you are successful. What happens in the asylum interview? They ask you anything and everything. How do you prepare for an asylum interview? The best thing you can do is try to prepare a statement for 2 reasons. Because you set out your case, you explain who you are, and also you give yourself a chance to go through the story of your life. You think you know your story of your life. No, you don't. Once you start putting it in writing, you realize how little you know about that, and how much, how jumbled up the information is in your head. when you go to these interviews, they expect you to answer questions like really quickly and very confidently. If you don't, they will be suspicious. This is the reality. And this is why having a solicitor helps. Not everybody can have a solicitor for a number of reasons. Legal aid is still available for asylum cases of any type. So you could get potentially a legal aid solicitor, you could get a private solicitor, whatever. But this is the advantage of having a solicitor. But not everybody needs a solicitor. If you feel confident enough, relaying your information and relaying your story, you could very well be successful. There's no reason for that not to happen. Yeah, I don't want people to think that, to worry because they don't have a lawyer. But what is really important is that you explain both in the statement at the asylum and at the asylum interview who you are and where you came from and where your journey of atheism started. Sometimes it's often as early as the age of 10. You started questioning the religious teachers and they didn't like it. They never like it. In my experience, they never ever like it. And then you came to the UK and this world of possibilities opened, and then you realize you couldn't go back. You need to explain all of that really well. They need to believe that that is you and that is the situation. So being believed is not really that much of a problem. Most of my clients came here as students. Most of my clients speak very good English and they can really advocate for themselves. They can really explain things fairly well. I find myself as a lawyer that I don't really have to do that much work with apostate clients. Once I tell them what is expected of them and how they should be answering questions without coaching them, just basically how to structure things, not just short sentences, everything's written down, just be very precise, listen to the question. Once they get it, they totally nail the interviews. It's really not a problem. Yeah, not a problem. More evidence that is useful and is completely free, more often than not, is information from letters of support from organizations like this one, or like Atheist UK, or like the Humanist Society, or there's a myriad of secular societies up there. I'm very fond of the Nottingham Secular Society. They have invited me to speak every now and again. They're very, very nice to me. They give me a lot of love every time I go up there. And there are many other organizations like them. So if you are in contact with them and they support you emotionally, or you attend meetings, get letters from them. So, those letters are normally free and they're very, very helpful. If you attend events organized by, again, the same type of organizations, if you are in London, you will be going to Conway House often, because that is like a hotbed of atheism. All the events are there, beautiful building as well. So if you register for events over there, you're going to be getting loads of emails, you're going to be getting loads of confirmations. Just keep all those emails, don't delete any of them. You will want to print them all out. If you have a lawyer, you give them to the lawyer. If you don't, you will be sending that to the Home Office. Either bring it with your asylum interview, the screening interview, or later on at your substantive asylum interview. And that will show that you go to all these things. You can also get letters of support or witness statements from friends who are settled in the UK, friends who are refugees because of apostasy as well, for example. Many of you will have friends in that sort of situation who have themselves been believed as apostates and who vouch for the fact that, you are a fellow non-believer, and that and the sort of things that you go together in pursuit of your interest when it comes to atheist issues, atheist themes. There's a myriad of things, yeah. So that is incredibly good evidence that doesn't cost you anything. What is also very good evidence, but that is expensive, is getting an expert report. And that is something that I always advise my clients that if they can afford it, to fund one. Not everybody can, but if they can, it could be all the difference between going to court or getting granted an application, particularly in complicated cases like Bangladeshi cases. You need to show quite a lot of things when it comes to Bangladesh, because the death penalty, they don't have the death penalty. It's very problematic being there for Muslims, but the other minorities living there, the other sort of ethnic groups, and that it's not that it's a problem, but the Home Office doesn't understand that it's not a pro society like they think it is. So it is having an expert report could make absolutely all the difference when it comes to one of these cases. But even in a case like Pakistan, there is a lot of information in the public domain about the blasphemy laws, about the people who get in prison, the persecution, the simply crazy things that happen, people who are accused of blaspheming on Facebook when they haven't really said anything really, and they see that a blasphemy, and all of that gets covered by in the public by the main media outlets, by the Guardian, by the Telegraph, by everybody pretty much. So there is something. Do your own research. Go online, and you probably do that anyway about your own country, just to keep tabs on it, see what's going on. So, and keep those links. You got a lawyer, send them, give them to the lawyer. If not, just print out those things. That is your evidence. That is your evidence. But an expert report will prepare a report that is tailor-made for you, will read your statement, would even speak to you if they have any questions. They say, oh, I spoke to Jimmy X from Saudi Arabia. This is what he told me. Yes, absolutely, this sort of thing. I can't confirm that because I wasn't there, but that sort of thing happens all the time. Yes, this is what happens. Yes, he fears X, Y, and Z is very, very likely because of this law, because of this, because of the other. And that you need to get a really good expert, somebody who has got credibility and has not, who is well accepted by the Home Office. So when you go to your asylum interview and all of that is presented, hopefully you will get asylum, and you should get asylum if all the ducks are in a row. And one of my running jokes that are actually not particularly funny is that the Home Office is not in the business of giving visas to people, and that is correct. They don't particularly like that. Asylum is a very hot topic in this country, in the whole of Europe, and it has been very politicized, which is a real shame, and it's very unfair on asylum seekers and refugees. But I find that the Home Office are surprisingly receptive to apostate cases in comparison to other groups of asylum claimants from any particular country. Usually because, I think it's because most of my clients, most of apostate clients, are extremely articulate, because they're people who had to think a lot for themselves to take themselves out of this sort of education where the Bible or the Quran sort of ruled everything to do with their lives, and everything was down to God, whatever denomination of God you want to think. Yeah. So people who grew up in the sort of societies, they have to be very intelligent, they have to be very forward thinking. I have done a lot of thinking, so they're naturally better at advocating for themselves. Usually that is my experience, and I think that translates in better results with a well-prepared case. If you're not granted refugee status and you're refused asylum, well, that's not good, obviously, no, clearly. So unless the Home Office thinks that you have got a really abusive claim and that you're completely pulling the leg and your case cannot be serious at all, but I don't think it's quite a thing with apostate cases, really. They will give you a right of appeal. It's an automatic right of appeal, and you will go to the first-tier tribunal. It's very easy to do an asylum appeal on the forms. It's actually not particularly problematic. If you are at the loose end and you haven't got a lawyer, do not miss the deadline. Do not miss the deadline. Just do it yourself. Explain, oh, I'm an apostate. Why wasn't I believed? Doesn't matter. Yeah, send it to them. But absolutely do not go to court without a lawyer. If you haven't got a lawyer at that point, get one. You have to get one. You have to. If you haven't got the means to pay for one, you will need to go around. You can go to the Law Society. You can go to any of these organizations. They have got links with lawyers like us, with the expertise and the interest in taking on these cases, and get representation, because you will be on your own. You can't really go to court and represent yourself, and it's far too important. I have not done many apostate appeals. I think I've done 2, actually. Yes, and I think my first apostate clients, lovely couple, I found them in a detention center many years ago. And that's how I developed an interest in this sort of and an expertise in this type of cases. And then after that, I think it was about 3 years ago, another client of mine, really well prepared case, everything was fine. He was able to find a report, really good evidence, no criminal conviction, no nothing, without anything that really would offend or annoy the Home Office. And the Home Office person, the decision maker, did not read the expert report at all and refused him. So we had to appeal. We went to court, and the judge was not impressed and pretty much shouted at the Home Office, "What are we doing? What are we doing here?" So we won, of course, because we had to win. But unfortunately, my client was severely out of pocket, because he had to pay for a barrister to go to court, had to pay me a bit more money to do more work, and that was really unfair, unfortunately, because it's not the higher courts. You cannot recover costs, which is not great. But what I'm trying to say here is that going to court is scary if you have to go to court, of course. do not think that they're going to treat you like a criminal. Most people, when they think of court, they think about crimes. There's nothing like that. And what is more important, the most important thing to remember about the judiciary is that they do not work for the Home Office. So it's not up to them anymore. The Home Office are a party in the proceedings, just like you are. So the judiciary in this country, by and large, is still very independent. As a matter of fact, at Wilson Solicitors, we win most of our asylum cases generally across the board of all denomination, persuasion. Most of our cases, we win them on appeal. And that is why. Because the Home Office can display a lot of bias, there could be lots of problems, there's lots of politics. We all know, we all read the papers, and we know, we have an idea what goes on, yeah, so how political this is. Now, with apostasy, it's not that they love apostates in the head of everybody else. It's not that. It's just, it's also a much smaller group of people than, say, refugees from Somalia or from Eritrea or from, think of any refugee-producing country that produces large numbers of asylum claimants. Afghanistan, anywhere, yeah? So apostates, they are very, very small categories. So I do think that could be part of it as well. But in my experience, it is, it's actually, I do get, it's my more successful group, client group, I have to say. And I want to think that, you know, I do the cases really well, but, you know, I do everybody's cases really well, and then not all of them are granted an application. That is the fact. That is a fact. So then if you go to court and you lose, what happens then? So there might be, I'm not going to get too technical on that because hopefully that won't happen. But just to let you know that that is not last chance saloon. There might be an opportunity to go further to the upper tribunal. You will need to show that you have got a point of law. There is an error of law, that the judge has made a mistake. For example, refused to look at something, didn't consider key parts of evidence that were before the judge, stuff like that. This is the sort of thing. And also, you could win, and then the Home Office might be unhappy because they lost, and they may appeal you. That is super unusual in apostate cases, but it's possible. It's absolutely possible. In which case, you thought that you won, and no, not well, yes, but your case might be reviewed by the upper tribunal. So you're not yet out of the woods until about 3 weeks after you get your determination, the decision from the court, and then if the Home Office does nothing, or they might apply for permission, and the tribunal might say no to them. That also happens, because the tribunal, they have no obligation to say yes to them. So that is also possible. So then eventually, hopefully, you will win your case, and then what happens? So then you get leave to remain in the UK as a refugee, which is a 5-year visa. It's a very, very good 5-year visa. That means that during that time, you're pretty much like a British national. You're entitled to everything: benefits, university, traveling, work, anything and everything you can think of. A council property, if you fulfill the other requirements, whatever, you're entitled to everything. Now, the only thing you cannot do is travel to your country of origin. And now, most of you will say, well, why would I do that? Of course not, I can't live there. But you see, it's obvious I'm not originally from here. So, you know, I've also had family abroad, and we all have got family who could be in the deathbeds, grannies that we love very much, parents who are sick, and you might want to go for a visit, for a last goodbye, that sort of situation, when really loved ones, people that you love very much, cannot travel to a third country to spend time with you. You can't go. So it's horrendous. I see that to my clients all the time, and sometimes they say, oh, I really want to go for a quick visit. I will be very discreet, nobody will know. So no, because the moment you come back to the UK, the Home Office will know. You might get away with it, but if they know, that's it. That's the end of your refugee status. They expect you to leave. Even if you went there for a weekend, it doesn't really matter. I didn't say this at the outset, and perhaps I should have said that. And this is what I always tell my clients at the first appointment. Asylum is a last resort. If there is any other way you can apply for leave to remain in the UK, do that. Even if it's expensive, even do that. Because then you will have the flexibility to retain your national passport and go back to your country of origin if you so wish. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. But you see, that is something that when people are very desperate and they have got no leave to remain, or the visa is coming to an end, and they really would do anything to be able to stay here, There might be other options sometimes, depending on the situation of the person. Sometimes there is an option of a student visa. Sometimes there is a work permit, and you have to be tied to an employer for a number of years. That people might not potentially want to do that. But applying for refugee status comes at a cost, at an emotional cost, and that is a fact. So 5 years down the line, what happens? Well, then you apply for indefinite leave to remain. Is it automatic? The short answer is nobody really knows, because it used to be pretty automatic. It used to be the fact that the Home Office always said, oh, yeah, we carry out an active review. In my experience, it wasn't very active or very reviewy. Nothing really happened. So it was a situation that if your client did not have criminal convictions, and it was like you and I, an average Joe, so, getting along with their lives in the UK, they were fine, and they were absolutely fine. But then, a couple of years ago, they introduced more provisions in the immigration rules, expecting people to satisfy the Home Office that the circumstances that gave rise to the asylum grant were still there. But apostates is not a problem, is it? Because Saudi Arabia is not going to change anytime soon, for example, or the Philippines. Yeah, those places are not going to change. That's the reality. So it usually is not that much of a problem. If you were an activist, it's not that they expect you to continue being an activist, but it's helpful if you have become active. But of course, people get married, have children, they have jobs, they move away from London, they can't come down to King's Cross that often. They cannot do what the sort of things and go to the meetups, with CMB, with the Humanist Society. They can't really do that because life gets in the way. So then a number of years go, and they haven't been to anything. They're not really particularly active as atheists. Active in the community, but they're still atheists, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It just has to be explained. I've never had a problem with that. Then further than that, there would be the possibility of later on accessing British citizenship. I'm not going to get into this unless you want me to talk about that, because that is not really within the remit of asylum. But I just want to tell you that there is a possibility later on. There's no expectation. Some clients say, I have to apply for British citizenship. Why? Because I have to? No, you don't. You can apply if you so wish. You have absolutely no obligation to do that. It's expensive. You have to do a couple of exams, not particularly difficult, but you have to do them. And you can apply for citizenship whenever you want. If you have been in the UK without leave to remain for a while, you will need to wait for quite a long time to be able to successfully apply for citizenship. People don't realize that, but that is a thing. Speak to a lawyer, pay for a little consultation before you pay £1,300 to the Home Office that is not going to give back to you. So that is pretty much it. Oh, a little note, sorry, I'll go here. On the issue of evidence, many people blog, many people post stuff on Facebook and social media. If all the information, or at least some of the information is related to atheism, so you follow Richard Dawkins, stuff, that sort of thing, then print that out as well and add it to things. If you blog yourself, and if you, I've got many clients that they get into these Facebook spats with people in various countries, about parts of the Bible or the Quran or the whatever, they get into these spats. If you do that, if that happens, just print them out, because that's evidence of your atheism as well. So right. I think I've covered pretty much everything.
I think you have. It was pretty thorough. Thank you for taking us all through all this process. So a couple of things before we go to questions and answers from our audience. So you mentioned in the first, who is a refugee, you mentioned the fear for their life or discrimination.
That's right.
Do people have to be in active danger to have the fear?
No, not at all. Not at all. Very good question. Thank you. Very, very good question. Not at all. You need to... Okay, let me illustrate this with an example. It's obviously the best thing. If you are an apostate from Saudi Arabia, somebody who doesn't believe in religion anymore, it's not difficult to believe that you will have a problem over there, because everybody knows how Saudi Arabia works. Even if they haven't got much knowledge, they know it's a particularly conservative, ultra-conservative place, like very few places in the world. So you don't have to be an activist. You don't have to be in immediate danger. The point is that if you go back, in order to avoid danger, if you have to pretend to be something that you no longer are, that is persecution.
Yes.
That is the point. So now, if you're an activist, you're somebody like, I've got all sorts of everything. I've got people that are super active, others who are not active at all, and everything in between, everybody in between. So if you are really active in the community, like you come to these meetings, you get involved with certain things, you go to meetups, you go to social things organized by Humanism UK, Faith to Faithless, all that sort of thing. So if you go to these things and you get, even if you don't talk to anybody, you're sitting there listening, you are participating in that, yeah. But even if you don't go, you don't have to go. Don't go for the sake of your asylum claim. That's what I'm trying to say, yeah. Some people don't like going to these things, not very social, but they're not believers anymore. They just need to explain they're not believers, and they need to be themselves in their interviews and their asylum applications and their asylum statements, and explain very clearly why they don't believe anymore and why they can't live in their countries anymore.
Yeah. Yes, and I prepared a long list of questions, but you were so thorough. You've
Oh, okay.
answered all of them already. So I'll go directly to our audience and see if there's any questions there. And keep the time limit in mind as well.
Not at all.
I'm an ex-Muslim atheist asylum seeker in Scotland. How can she help in Scotland?
Okay, there is this thing called the telephone, yeah, and the internet. So you see, if you want to get in touch with me, just send me an email, and if you want, we can have a little consultation on the phone, or a little chat, or a full-on consultation. At the moment, it doesn't matter where you are. Yeah, you could be round the corner from me in Tottenham. I won't be able to see you in the office because of coronavirus. We are still working at Wilson's, but we're doing so remotely. Nobody comes into the office. So I have been doing Skype consultations and Skype appointments, and I've got many of my clients, asylum and non-asylum, are all over the world, and I've never even met them in person, and I've been working with them for years. So that's perfectly doable with all the technology we have available now.
Brilliant. And we'll leave her details in the description, and you can find that on our website as well. If you go to CMD's website and the event page,
thank you.
Yeah, you can find that. And the next questions, I'm from Sri Lanka. There are ex-Muslims in Sri Lanka, India, and some other minority Muslim countries where Muslims are minorities. They face death threats. There are two examples. One is Farouk from India, who was murdered, and other is Rishwin from Sri Lanka, who's almost about to be killed. Farouk for small business. I don't see any question here.
Okay. Okay, let's just be creative. I think Shamil is probably asking what happens to people from those countries. Maybe that's the question.
In countries where Muslims are actually in minority, but they still fear of persecution.
Well, that's difficult. That is difficult because India is it's a subcontinent. It's a massive country with a massive population, and it's not a majority Muslim country. Now, the thing with India, it would be a little bit to a degree. The example that I gave about the United States. If you are from Alabama, in these sort of high octane evangelist sort of places that they're completely fundamentalist, you can leave and go to New York and nobody cares. Yeah. Now, that's normal. That's okay in a country like that. But you see, in India, the Home Office will expect you to do that. This is the difficulty. The Home Office will expect you to do that. If you're from Calcutta, they say, "Oh, go to Mumbai. Who cares?" There are no restrictions. Yeah. Like in Russia, for example, you need to get permission to live in areas. No, in India you don't have to do that. You just can go. Yeah. But the reality is that even though on paper, yes, you can get a train and go, you might not be able to live there because they might speak a different language. Yeah. You may not have any employment connections, and you have any social connections. Yeah. There could be. This is where a country expert is key. This is a perfect example because you see, it's all very well to get a country expert to comment on the blasphemy laws in Pakistan and all the horrendous things that have happened. It's wonderful to have that, but the reality is that most of my Pakistani clients don't need that because all the information is now out there on the public domain, and because so much happened. But this person from India, in this sort of situation, because the first instinct or the Home Office will say, "Oh yeah, oh shampoo are you? Yeah, blah blah blah. Go somewhere else in India." There is no geographical restriction. So. But that in reality might not be workable. If it's not workable, that's when you need an expert.
So on the question of relocation, how easy or hard it is to actually challenge it on the basis that can Home Office expect you to live in hiding somewhere else within the country?
Excellent question. No, they can't. The test is that it cannot expect you to relocate in unduly harsh circumstances. It's a very old case, actually, that has been challenged. So if it means, for example, Algeria, for example, Algeria, problematic, difficult, complex cases because it's not It's supposed to be a secular society and the other thing, but complex. Now, if you have to go to a desert type of area to live there, when you're not from there, you're not a Bedouin, they can't expect you to do that. They can't expect you to do that. So you see, it has to be a realistic prospect. If you are from Tehran, there's no point in you going to Shiraz. The problem is everywhere. Yeah, it's absolutely everywhere. And this is the difficulty in that Indian scenario. The problem might not be everywhere, but it might not be workable or realistic for you to go and live in those places.
Yeah.
Because you might not have the connections. You might, as I said, you might not be accepted in that community. India is very diverse. They got lots of different ethnic groups. It's just it would be difficult to argue successfully. Make no mistake. But this is how you approach these things. You get information from the internet, from the public domain, but ideally you get an expert to just specifically argue your particular circumstance. Because if you don't, the Home Office will do everything they can to wiggle out of giving you refugee status on that basis.
I guess this person again is raising another point, saying because to obtain any visa, especially to Western country, to get out of countries like India and Sri Lanka, you need a wealthy background or at least financial statement to prove. What ways are there to actually go around? Can you go to a third country where it's actually cheaper?
That is a very difficult question. Yeah. Because you see, if you're from a visa national, that means that you're because of your nationality, you need a visa to come to the UK. If you pretend to be a visitor to come to the UK and apply for asylum, you're actually technically breaking the law. Now, you're going to ask me, so how do I come? So it's a chicken and egg situation. That's the reality. Yeah. And people call me from all over the world, over these countries where this is a problem, and they ask me and they say, well, what shall I do? I say, well, I can't tell you to get a visitor's visa to come here because you will be lying to the Home Office. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there was the one person who told me, oh, I already have got a visitor's visa. Okay. So, well, okay, then you can come, but you will need to apply for asylum at the airport and explain your circumstances. You see, you cannot pretend to be something that you're not because you're breaking the law. You're employing deception.
Yes.
And that's a criminal offense.
Yes, that's where the first opportunity when you explained.
Exactly.
That's where it doesn't sit well with me. How can people coming from a different country know about laws in this country and then the asylum can be rejected on that basis?
Well, in apostate cases, that's not quite a thing. Well, it can happen, but in my experience, that's not the reason why. Because you see, most of my clients have got a very good explanation. It's like, I didn't know.
Of course.
Yeah? Like most of my LGBTI clients, like, I can apply for asylum because I'm gay from Jamaica. Really? Really? Since when? So, it's just, that is something that is not widely known. And as I said, the only client that I had to apply for asylum on arrival was an activist, somebody who was in one of these countries. I'm not going to say very much because it would be recognizable, and somebody who was quite well known in the atheist field and had lived in several countries and had to leave for obvious reasons. Yeah. So that person had connections all over Europe and decided to come to the UK. Had a visa to come to the UK for something else. Had been here before, came to the UK, applied for asylum on arrival. That is rare. That is rare. So the thing to do is unreasonable of the Home Office to expect people to apply for asylum on arrival. Because if you come from the Philippines, yeah, and you are a Catholic, and you absolutely cannot go back, but you come here to study. You came here to study, and then after living here, you realize that you don't want to go back to this really oppressive society. Yeah, you were not an atheist an atheist with a well-funded fear of persecution at the time you crossed the border at Heathrow Airport, because you didn't know.
Yes.
You came here to study, like most of you, most people, most of my clients. They came here to study. They came here sometimes to marry. They came here, 90% is to study or to do a master's, to do work experience, to whatever, yeah? Or some of them even as entrepreneurs. And then they cannot go back. They cannot go back. It's something that happens after the event. This is very important because a couple of my clients have got caught out on this. People who had visas, particularly student visas, long-term student visas, and travel out of the UK a lot. Yeah, the Home Office don't like that. Okay, because if you do that, and then you claim the asylum at the Home Office, you call them, hello Home Office, I want asylum. Yeah, they give you a screening, off you go. You don't do that at the airport. That is a problem. Yeah.
Right.
And what they will do, they will interview you under caution. And what that means is that they're going to try to prove that you have used deception, that you basically manipulated the system unfairly. Because you could have applied for asylum during one of the times you returned to the UK from your trips to your. For example, I had a very wealthy client who was completely dominated by her family because they pay for her studies. They say you have to come home for a weekend, even though it was very far away. She had to go, had no choice. Yeah. So there were lots of these silly trips. Yeah. Or cousin X was getting married, so you have to come. Yeah. Or we want to do a visa to go to America. Are we going to America? Oh, maybe one day. Okay, come. And they have, and she had to do it. Yeah, she had to do it. She had no choice. So apply for asylum, and they were very unsympathetic. They said, "Well, you keep on coming and going. Who gives? Yeah, what's it about? Yeah." So they wanted to charge it with deception. Yeah, and you say that you are an illegal entrant. Now, that is not a problem for your asylum application, and many people don't realize that, particularly they haven't got lawyers. So they ask you this question, say, okay, fine, you're an illegal entrant, you have to come and report and sign at Beckett House in London Bridge or whatever, once a month. Yeah, okay. You get your asylum, fine, happy days. Okay, you forgot about that, completely forgot about it. Yeah, or maybe you never understood it. Yeah, never understood it. You apply for your refugee, you apply for indefinite leave to remain, you get your indefinite, no problem at all. Then you apply for British citizenship. That's where they get you, because you broke the law.
Okay.
That is surprisingly common, let me tell you. Yeah, surprisingly common. Surprisingly common. So I had another client from who interestingly contacted me before he came to the UK. I said, I've got a visa already for a student visa, but I want to apply for asylum. I said, well, fine. When you come to the UK, apply immediately. Yeah, came to the border. It was Heathrow Airport. First time any of us come to Heathrow Airport, it's a madhouse, isn't it? It's like planes, people,
Exactly.
and there's all sorts of stuff going on. I remember my first time, it's like, oh my goodness, what's this? Yeah. So obviously, somebody coming from out of Europe, it would be even more striking. So he freaked out and freaked out by the whole thing, and then was confronted by a lady in a hijab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, people from your organization have heard these stories many times before. Yeah. And he didn't have the heart to actually say, I want asylum. He wouldn't have to speak to that one, but he didn't know that. Yeah. So the sense, and then he was slapped with a notice of illegal entry, even though we explained this is what happened. He fully intended, and blah, blah, he froze. CEMB did a letter saying very common cultural reasons, very difficult, very ingrained cultural reasons. They didn't care. So this person will be getting indefinitely to remain at some point in the next couple of years, if I remember correctly. So and then I'm going to have to fight it on British citizenship, but they're going to get in trouble. They're going to get in trouble. So that's, and lots of people don't even notice that if they go to apply for asylum without any legal advice, because the screening interview is very chaotic, isn't it? There's a lot of waiting around. Nothing much happens in substance. Is 90% of the time is waiting around, isn't it?
Exactly.
So first they take your fingerprint. They put you there. Then they put you on the bench for another 3 hours, and then they come back and they ask you 3 questions, and then another 2 hours go by. Yeah, and then that's what happens. Yeah, in substance, the substance of the screening interviews are 45 minutes or an hour at the most.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they start asking these weird questions. When you apply for at the airport, say, what airport? And then they say, oh, well, we're going to record your answers. And you say, oh, okay. You don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. And they give you this notice. Well, illegal entry, blah, blah. You have to, whatever. We'll call you for an interview. And you don't give it a second thought. You don't think it's important. But it is. It will be important 6-7 years down the line when you want to apply for British citizenship.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's why it's important to have a solicitor. Legal advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay. There is an alternative EU visa system called humanitarian visa, which is exactly for people who seek asylum and can't go outside.
Okay. All right. Yes and no. It's not an EU visa system. I don't know what you mean by that. There is another type of status, of protection status, called humanitarian protection. Yeah, the distinction is a little bit gray. the reality is whether you apply for asylum or you apply for protection and you're given refugee status or humanitarian protection, is pretty much the same thing. You get 5 years, you can still apply for a travel document. The difference is that on humanitarian protection, you get to keep your national passport.
All right.
Okay? And that is important for some people. Now, it doesn't mean that you can go back to your country. It's a different thing, yeah? Doesn't mean that you can go back. You can't, because if you go back and say, oh, so you were not that scared anymore, yeah? That even if it was for a weekend, they will say that, yeah? So you can't go back, yeah? So then so that, but it's pretty much the same thing. Like, for example, when you apply for indefinite leave to remain, there is no fee. That is not, which is a big thing, because if you are applying under domestic rules for other categories, it's £2,322 per person.
Oh.
So, yeah, so if you've got a family of 4, that's 10 grand right there, pretty much, yeah. So you don't apply. So with humanitarian protection, you get the same rights and benefits of refugee status, exactly the same. But you get to keep your passport. Now, this is the practicality. The legal difference is that is to do with the Human Rights Act, an article called Article 3. Yeah. Because it could be a situation where you would not fulfill the refugee test, as in you would not qualify for refugee status for that list of race, nationality, political opinion, blah. But because of something specific to you and your circumstances, you could be persecuted. You could be in prison. You could be killed. You could have all sorts of problems. Yeah, they're completely disproportionate. Yeah, but not because of one of those things. So it is. So you do see it. But as a lawyer, I don't see it very often.
Okay.
So sometimes my clients get that and say, what's that? I say, that's good. That's good. It's exactly the same thing. You don't want to use your passport, you have to. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. But it is not that frequent. But yeah, it does exist.
Okay, great. Okay, the next, sometimes they're questioning you in home office just to put you in trouble. So I guess the question is, what's the level of scrutiny people should expect when they're going in?
It's not sometimes, it's always. It's always. So that is the reality. That's why you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. You need to, and that's why writing the story of your life, yeah, or helping doing it yourself or helping somebody, getting somebody to help you do it, could be a friend, could be a lawyer, is very important, because it makes you think about, it makes you view your life as in a third, as the life of a third person, and that's weird. That is weird. I actually done it myself. Usually what my clients go through, yeah, because I've seen the difficulties, thinking to myself, oh, what's that's so difficult, you know. But then I thought to myself, but if those questions were asked of me, first of all, I don't know what questions are going to be asked of me, and then you have to think something, and you have to give a coherent answer when the sort of information might be sort of floating around your head, yeah, exactly. in a very coherent way, and particularly if you have gone through lots of problems. Now, many of my clients, thankfully, they're not the most abused clients. They're people that have suffered torture, they have suffered imprisonment, rape. It could happen, but it's not that common. But they have suffered a lot of emotional turmoil, because many of them, they get disowned by their families, and that is horrendous. That is terrible. That is terrible, and psychologically, is very, very damaging. Many of them have been disowned by the only friends they had in the UK. I had clients on the verge of suicide for that reason. Just because of being apostate, just basically being turfed out of their student accommodation from their countries, from their home country. So he didn't know anybody else, very shy person, and he was seriously contemplating suicide at some point for that reason. It's it was very isolating. So that is very traumatic. So you got this trauma added to the mix, yeah? So that's going to be difficult. We're going to make it really difficult for you to give coherent instructions off the cuff. That's why it's good to practice, yeah? To sit down and just to think about your life, to sit down with a lawyer and think of the questions. If you're with a lawyer, the lawyer is not going to rush you, yeah? They're not going to be jabbing you for an answer. It's just, if my client gives me a weird answer and I don't understand it, I will take the time, yeah, to deconstruct it. But the Home Office won't. So they have to be ready for that sort of thing. And also, and this is very common on apostate clients, because many of my clients are very intellectual, yeah, very, very intellectual, and people like to talk, don't they? And they like to give me all these spills and quote Richard Dawkins and even sort of, and that's the spokes of truth. They say that's great, but no, okay. You see, you need to confine. You're going to lose the person from the Home Office who might be a 20-year-old who never heard of these people, yeah, and doesn't quite know where your country is, what apostasy really means, yeah. So you see, you have to be really clear. So that's why having legal advice is invaluable, just so that you know what is expected of you. Lawyers will not coach you. They won't tell you what to say, because only you know what to say, because you're going to talk about your life. I'm not going to give you a story.
Exactly.
You tell me your story, and I explain to you, and I tell you how to explain your story so that it's really effective and you can communicate it in a really effective way. That is the difference. So I'm going to tell you how to answer questions. I will say it's like if the questions are closed, it's a yes or no. Say first yes, no. Look at the person, because they have to. Everything gets written in real time, yeah. And when they look at you and they give it go ahead, you say the rest you want to say, yeah. So little tips like that make all the difference. Things like, for example, if you, because these interviews can go on for hours, sometimes could be 5-6 hours, yeah? So if it's been a long time and you start getting a headache and you need a breather, you tell them, can I have 5 minutes, please? Yeah, they will give you 5 minutes. Nobody will be angry. You'll be fine, yeah. If you need to have an interpreter, not very common with these cases, but sometimes it happens, and you don't understand the interpreter, don't be shy. Just tell them, I don't understand the interpreter, yeah, because that person might be changing the narrative of your case, yeah, and you probably get refused. If you need the toilet, if you're dying for the toilet, don't suffer in silence. Tell them you have to go to the toilet. It's fine. Nobody cares, yeah. These little things, yeah. A legal advisor, a solicitor, or a legal advisor with expertise in these sort of things will be able to give you the confidence to communicate and put your case across in the most effective way.
Yes, and that confidence is needed going through this journey myself, because you put yourself in a vulnerable position and you sit in front of a person of authority and you are putting your life on that desk there. You need the confidence. So having the legal advice would help you immensely in that.
It's a very intimidating problem. I haven't been to an asylum interview for a very long time. I didn't have to claim asylum myself, so I haven't gone through the process. But I've gone through the journey of asylum with many of my clients. In the old days, when legal aid covered all that sort of thing, it doesn't anymore. So if you, unless the person is extremely vulnerable, like you only normally get paid to go to asylum interviews with children, asylum seeking children. So that's, which is fair enough, obviously. But you see, back in the old days, last century, when I started working at Wilson Solicitors, in 1999, we got to go, literally last century, So we got to go to these interviews. We were even able to go to screenings. So, I was very privileged as a young caseworker and then a trainee solicitor to be able to see all that, because then I could tell clients what to expect, because I had seen it, Now, things like, for example, people go and do biometrics at the Croydon Center. I don't know what that is like. So they have to tell me so I can tell other people what to expect. But you see, back then we were paid. We were funded for that sort of work. So off we went. And I sat in many asylum interviews. I dealt with lots of South Americans. So I was the clerk and I was the interpreter. Sort of correcting interpreters and things and stopping interviews sometimes or whatever. So you see, and I've been in that building many, many times. So it is not welcoming, is it? It's not welcoming. The asylum screening unit, it used to be like the anteroom of hell. It was really so incredibly unwelcoming. Those metal benches, it was really one of the worst places I've ever been. Now they have made it a little bit more user-friendly now. There's no as intimidating. You had to speak to people through a glass. They were shouting at you, like in the benefit center. So you're screening. It was unbelievable, unbelievable. So it is a very intimidating process, but it's doable if you have got the right support. And if you're not sure whether you have got an asylum case and you think about it, don't call the Home Office and do it. Once you do that, you can't. There's no going back. You can't just go back and do any other visa. You either follow this or you go home. Pretty much, more often than not. If you're unsure, pay a lawyer. If you can, just to do a consultation, explain your case, and get expert advice as to whether you have got a viable case, and if you do, how to get it off the ground.
Great, thank you. I think we're approaching time as well. Let's see if there are more questions. How can public reach out to her in case we need to send her ex-Muslim clients? You
can
email. Yes, we'll leave her details in the description. Okay. Question on Facebook. In Turkey, refugees discriminated by UNHCR. Religious min priority does not
Yeah.
Okay. They do not prioritize atheists in UNHCR, and
Yeah.
UNHCR staff and Muslims don't treat atheists well. Even
I have heard about that. Yes, I have heard. Anecdotally, I haven't dealt with that myself. The thing with UNHCR in Turkey is that Turkey, they got a very weird situation going on there. Yeah, with these camps, that it is a waiting room, waiting to be sent somewhere else. You're waiting to be sent, mainly to the United States, actually. Most people from Turkey. So, but they can be on those lists for years and years and years. So if you got family, it's a completely different type of refugee law. It's just to do with agreements between countries. Yeah, between countries. So not many people stay in Turkey forever as a refugee, like you would stay in a European country or in the United States or in Australia. You just wouldn't. Yeah, you just wouldn't. But yeah, that is a big problem. That is a big problem. So if one of those people turned up on our shores somehow, and they found their way to my office, that's all I can say. If I would be able to advise them, because you see, they should not be expected to go back to that situation if it was causing them harm, but it has to be capable of amounting to persecution. Now, there isn't a real definition of persecution, because persecution can be so many things. Can be so many things. Being put in prison, being killed, obviously is persecution. It's the highest grade of persecution. But as I said earlier, just not being given the right the jobs that you're qualified for, just because they know you don't go to church on Sunday, yeah, in your particular area, and obviously you're persona non grata. No, you are fine to clean floors, but you're not going to work in the office. That is persecutory in itself. If that happens everywhere, and you are deprived of making a livelihood because of your lack of religion, that is persecutory, very clearly, very clearly. So if those people in Turkey are being treated unfairly, are given worse accommodation, are not given the same rights and privileges as others who are religiously observant of any religion, doesn't matter whether Muslim, but there would be over there, but you know, it doesn't really matter. There would be other refugee camps somewhere else with other religions. That is persecutory in itself, of course. Of course.
okay, brilliant.
Definitely.
I think we have a last question now, and then we will wrap up. Okay, it's from Facebook. Farshid. Main problem in the indetermination of refugee status based on atheism is determination of asylum seeks proceed to be an atheist. So probably journey
The
out of
journey, that's right. The
how does that
journey is so important, so important. So what you need to show is, I touched on that earlier, but I could talk about asylum statements all night, because you know it is an art to do a good asylum statement, because you basically is writing the story of your life. So if you could do it in a really factual way, like I've seen some people do, other lawyers, other people, fellow professionals, that they start saying, "Oh, my problem is started." They start in a really disjointed way. The Home Office, they're not going to engage with that. You have to draw them into the narrative. Yeah. So my name is Jimmy from Saudi Arabia, yeah, or from Iran. Not that many people from Saudi Arabia actually. So from Iran, and then my family was fairly liberal, but you know I had to conform and did this and did that and did the other thing. But you know I had all these questions. I didn't understand these things about the Prophet. It didn't make sense to me. And I asked questions, and I was beaten up by the religious teacher because they didn't like it, and they were not giving me any answers, and that sort of thing. So, and then little by little, I wasn't really particularly convinced, yeah. And then came to the UK, and oh my God, you know, my life changed, and then I realized that, you know, for me personally, I'm not saying that this is a fantasy. Any religion is a fantasy. For me, it is. But you know, I am very respectful. Like I know people are CMB, they're very respectful of people's of anybody's beliefs. We're that is why we live in an open society. Yeah. So we're very respectful of that. But the problem that in some places they're not very respectful of us. That is the problem. Yeah. So that is the issue. That is the issue. So you need to show you need to document your journey. There are other cases that are even more fascinating and not that uncommon, where people were super devout when they came here. They went to university. They got challenged by others. They didn't like it, but said, okay. And then they started engaging with arguments because they were inquisitive and they were intelligent and they listened to others. Yeah, because some people don't listen to anything. Yeah, but they listened to others. And little by little, they went from being like in the mosque in Luton 5 times a day, yeah, to going to you guys and finding the way to me. Yeah. So you see, and there is a journey, and everybody, there will be lots of common denominators to that journey, but everybody's got a unique journey because everybody's different.
Of course, and it's important to highlight that in engaging ways. So Home Office has better understanding of your journey as well.
On that point, let me just make a point, because there was an issue in one of my cases. One of my cases, my client said, "Oh, yeah, I don't. It was in the UK, yeah. So I have permission to work, because he did. It was just a thing. Oh yeah, I'm working with this in this organization. You know, they are very. I don't really believe in God anymore. That's not my thing. You know, this is why. And gave me a really reason, all very believable, but he was pretending,
Right.
yeah, just to be able to keep that job. Now, I get that. But this is the UK. You don't have to do that here. And if that is the case, the Home Office will say, if you do that here, you can do that over there. So that's very, very important as well. Yeah. And I make no bonds to that sort of thing. I don't criticize. I will not judge anybody who does anything like that, because I do understand the importance of your origins, of keeping a connection to your culture, the culture of origin. Even if you don't believe or subscribe to many of these values, this is still your culture of origin. Like, you know, having an atheist having been a Catholic for 1,000,000 years, but you know, Christmas Eve, I still cook fish. You know, I do that. So, you know, we retain things. These things are very, very important. But if it means that you are really basically not honoring your true self when you live in an open society, and there's absolutely no reason for you not to do that, yeah, that is a problem. And the Home Office will rightly pick up on that and will refuse your case, and it will be very difficult to come back from that.
Right. Thank you. And I promise that was the last question, but there's another question that's really
No, go ahead. No problem. If you got time, I've got time. It's not. I'm at home, like
interesting.
everybody else.
Great. Yeah,
Home,
everybody is these days. Okay. Lisa Marie asked, difference between men and women in applying for apostasy. The acceptance difference?
Of course. Well, the difference is about the way women are treated in that particular country. That in most countries in the world, unfortunately, equality has not yet come. In some places we're more equal than others, but you know, we're not there 100% anywhere. That's the reality. So the more traditional the country, the more obligations are going to be put on women, and the more punished women can be. Yeah, because the thing is also, for example, somebody from Bangladesh, from Bangladesh, it is somebody from Bangladesh who's an apostate and might be able to potentially go to another part and avoid Jamaat Islami and people like that. Now they're everywhere, but you know, they're not absolutely in every single street. It's not like, you know, it's not a majority. But and a man potentially can just go from one place to another, and particularly if they're educated, and just work or whatever. Yeah. Now they will have to still pretend, and they will never. But a woman can never do that in a society like that. Unless you're married or widowed, so you have had the sort of, you know, the respectability conferred by marriage. Yeah. So, you know, you cannot be like an English 20-year-old who lives home and goes to live with the friends from uni. You can't do that in those countries as a woman. You can do that as a man, but you can't do that as a woman. So in cases like this, it's often is worth and relevant to argue another part of the Refugee Convention, yet another part. So it would be apostasy, and it would be membership of a social group. And women from societies like that are capable of being members of a social group. Very quickly on this, this is the sort of the convention is very old. The convention came out of the ashes of the Second World War, so it's a long time ago. Yeah, 75 years ago. As of last week, wasn't it? So we had the So later on, so you know, Geneva Convention, all of that. They never again, and they look what's happening now. Yeah. Okay. So and so back then, lots of things were not anticipated. Yeah. So they sort of, the law covered the most obvious things: race, nationality, political opinion, that being the biggie, always say, yeah, religion, and then membership of social group. That could be anything and everything. Yeah. I did a whole thesis on that at university, because there's so much that you can say about that. Yeah. About PSG, particular social group. So the thing about particular social group, you need to show that the group it's not just a group of people. They want to be a category. No, it doesn't work like that. It has to be, they have to share an immutable characteristic, something that cannot be changed. That is why gay LGBTI people, LGBTI individuals from certain countries are also refugees because of this PSG thing. And women, as of 1999, the case of Shah in Islam, which was groundbreaking back then, and it was when we still had the House of Lords doing cases, held that women from Pakistan in particular, women from Pakistan were capable of amounting to a particular social group because of the difficulties they will face. There was those were women that were running away from their families, from their fathers, from their abusive husbands. Not everybody is abusive, but many people are, and they get away with it. Yeah, they will go to the police station. The police will take them out to the family. It's a family matter. We don't care. Yeah, the police will not protect you. That is another thing, actually, that I didn't touch on because there's so much to say. As well as the issue of being able to relocate is the issue of whether you are able to get protection from the police, which in most of these countries, either they don't care, or they will make your life even more difficult, because they're going to side with the people who are persecuting you.
Exactly.
So it sort of goes without saying, because if there is a blasphemy, a really draconian blasphemy law in Pakistan, or the sort of the general laws in Iran, and the general laws in Saudi Arabia, of course the police are going to enforce those laws and they're going to go after you. But in a place like Bangladesh, that doesn't quite exist, for example, but the police are not going to help you.
As far as I know, Bangladesh has blasphemy law, but no, it's not by that.
Not on the same level. Not on the same level.
Yeah.
Not on the same level. Yeah. Yes, not on the same level. So, what happens often, as everybody knows, in many Islamic societies, that even if it's on paper a secular society, Sharia law is still there.
Exactly.
So even though Sharia law might sometimes it has got legal status in places like UAE, which is people are very surprised by that. Yeah, I've never been, but there were some amazing speakers, some CMB conferences, people who just got a very raw deal there in some divorce cases and custody cases. Despite all the big skyscrapers and the modernity and all the footballers go there on holiday and seems to be very European. No. There's nothing like that at all. Yeah. And Sharia law is the law of the country. And when you see all that modernity around there, it's difficult to reconcile that with how traditional they are. Yeah. But talking with the royal family, that's a whole other story. But if you go to Algeria, the law does not provide for even for imprisoning people, on that basis. However, what happens is that the police are not going to help you, The police will potentially bring charges for other reasons because they don't like the fact that you are basically straying away from the herd. Who do you think you are? Yeah. And then people from your neighborhood, from your area, will beat you up, and the police might help them. Might help them. That has happened. So then if you go from one place to another, Algeria, again, massive country, Morocco, ditto, same thing, go to another part. The moment, so you might have a couple of months of peace until people realize that you're not going to the mosque, you're not participating in the religious festivals, you're not basically towing the line, and they're going to notice. And then the same thing will start. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
It's
and that is what happens. That is what happens. So police protection is a thing as well. You need to address that. Now, in most atheist cases, it just basically comes with it, really. It comes with it. It's like the internal flight alternative. Can you relocate? No, you can't. In most of these countries, you can't. Where can you go? If you go in the Philippines, you can go to an island, and it will be even worse than Manila, because they're even more isolated and they're even more fundamentalist. So you can't. You just can't. So so women, most of these women will have an even stronger case because they have an added strand to their case. So there would be political opinion, religion, particular membership of a social group.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much, Anna. It was very informative and educational for all of us, and I hope it's helped a lot of people.
So do I.
Yeah, when we do these meetups at a location in London, there's usually one-to-one with Anna, that if you have something you can discuss with her, which we can't do online, of course, because there's people like the private matters. But for other events, do check out our website. We do a support group. You can go to our events page on our website and check, and you can send us an email. You have to reserve your place by email for support group. And our next meetup is on 16th of June, which is going to be an open night for refugees to come up and share their stories. And I'll see you guys then. And thank you so much for Anna for your invaluable time for us.
No, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. All the best. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks.
Bye.